I want you to picture a dog that you absolutely love.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe it's the dog sleeping at your feet right now, or I don't know, a childhood pet. Just picture them in their absolute prime.
Right, that peak phase.
You know the phase I'm talking about, that endless, chaotic, puppy energy. They're chasing tennis balls, launching off the sofa.
Acting like nothing in the physical world could ever possibly stop them.
Exactly. It feels like that golden phase is just going to last forever. But then one day, seemingly overnight, that endless energy starts to fade.
And, well, the trap there is that it rarely happens all at once, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The fading is incredibly gradual.
So subtle.
Yeah, that slow shift is exactly what makes it so difficult for us to navigate.
Yeah.
When you watch a creature you love every single day, you develop a sort of blindness to the micro changes.
You just don't notice the fractional loss of speed or like the extra hour of sleep.
Exactly.
And that blindness is precisely what we are tackling in today's deep dive. We are looking at a deeply comprehensive breakdown from the Dog Health Academy, specifically focusing on their senior dog health checklist.
It's such a vital resource.
It really is. But our mission today isn't just to talk about, managing old age. That sounds a bit clinical and grim. The goal here is to learn how to decode the subtle, almost invisible signs of canine aging.
Because spotting them changes everything.
Right, because if you can spot those signs early, you can step up and be the ultimate advocate for your dog during their golden years. Okay, let's unpack this.
I am thrilled we're digging into this. The entire trajectory of a dog's later years changes the moment you realize that certain behaviors are, well, biological signals rather than just inevitabilities.
Right, they aren't just getting old.
Exactly. Knowing exactly what to look for and understanding the physical mechanisms behind those changes, it's the difference between a dog merely enduring their old age and a dog genuinely thriving in it.
So before we can even begin applying a checklist, we have to establish when we actually, pull the checklist out. When does a dog officially cross that threshold into becoming a senior?
Right.
Because I always operated under the assumption that it was just 7 years old across the board. The classic dog years math.
Yeah, the classic times 7 rule. But the biological reality is far more complex than a flat number. The aging timeline is entirely dictated by, well, the size and the breed of the dog.
It's staggering when you look at the timeline differences. Like, smaller breeds actually age much more slowly on a cellular level.
They really do.
A Chihuahua or a Dachshund might not even hit that senior classification until they are, 10 or 11 years old?
Right, 10 or 11. But if you have a giant breed, like a Great Dane or an Irish Wolfhound, that dog might be considered a senior citizen at just 6 or 7 years old.
Wow, just 6.
And that discrepancy comes down to the immense physiological stress of operating a massive frame.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the cellular metabolism required for a giant breed to grow so rapidly in their first year of life, it essentially accelerates their overall aging process.
So some bodies are just working harder just to exist.
Precisely. This means a Great Dane owner needs to be proactively thinking about senior care, like half a decade earlier than a Chihuahua owner. You really have to ask your vet directly to define the senior timeline for your specific dog.
And that timeline is crucial because missing it leads to what is probably the most dangerous assumption any dog owner can make.
The just old age trap.
Yeah. There's a story in the breakdown about an owner named Daniel and his 9-year-old Labrador, Scout.
Oh, Scout's story is so common.
It really is. So Scout was a highly energetic, deeply social dog, the kind that practically tackles you at the front door.
Classic lab behavior.
Right. But Daniel started noticing Scout taking a few extra seconds to get up in the mornings. There was a slight hesitation before going up the stairs.
Just a slight hesitation.
Yeah. Nothing dramatic, just a subtle shift in his mechanics. And Daniel did what basically any of us would do. He figured Scout was 9, he was getting older, and his body was just slowing down.
It's such a natural assumption to make.
He assumed it was completely normal, so he quietly adjusted their routine. He stopped taking Scout on steep hikes, let him sleep more, and waited months until a routine vaccination appointment to even mention it.
Months of waiting.
And at that checkup, the vet discovers Scout has early-stage arthritis in his hips. It had been progressing quietly, and they lost months of time where they could have been actively managing his comfort and, slowing the joint degradation.
Time they can't get back.
But I have to push back here on behalf of anyone listening, though. Isn't it perfectly logical to assume a 9-year-old Labrador is just slowing down? I mean, it feels like assuming a 15-year-old car isn't going to win a drag race anymore. You don't panic and take it to the mechanic. You just accept it's an old car.
This raises an important question, and it's exactly why the car analogy, while tempting, falls short when we're talking about biology.
Oh, how so?
Well, a car slowing down is mechanical wear and tear. A dog slowing down is very often a direct response to pain.
Wow.
That is the critical distinction we have to internalize. Daniel wasn't being negligent. He was being a fiercely loving owner who fell into a very common psychological trap. We equate slowing down with the natural, painless process of aging.
So we think they're just tired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But hesitation on the stairs or sleeping all day isn't just getting old. It is the animal physically modifying their behavior to avoid discomfort. The fundamental rule we have to adopt is to never automatically dismiss behavioral changes as just old age without a veterinary consultation.
That fundamental shift changes everything. Slowing down means pain, not just aging.
Exactly.
So since Scout's misdiagnosis was physical, it was arthritis, it makes sense to start the checklist with the mechanics of the dog's body. The foundation, so mobility, weight management, and the surprising dangers hiding in their mouths.
Mobility is usually the very first red flag, and again, we are looking for subtlety here.
Like the hesitation.
Right. We're looking for that momentary calculation they do before jumping onto the couch, or stiffness that is particularly noticeable in the mornings or right after they've been resting for a while.
Why is it always worse in the mornings?
That morning stiffness happens because the synovial fluid, which is the natural lubricant in their joints, it actually thickens up when they aren't moving.
Oh, I see. And mobility is tied directly to weight management. Right.
Hugely tied to it.
Because if the cartilage in a dog's hips or knees is already degrading, carrying around an extra 3 or 4 pounds is compounding the stress on those sensitive areas. That excess weight acts like an amplifier for inflammation.
It's so tough on them.
Plus, muscle loss happens naturally with age. As they lose the muscle mass in their hind legs, they are losing their body's natural shock absorbers.
Precisely. Without strong muscles to absorb the impact of walking, the skeletal system takes the brunt of the force. Bone hits bone.
Ouch.
Yeah, and this creates a tricky balancing act. You have to keep their weight down to protect the joints, but the dog can't exercise the way they used to.
So what do? You can't just stop exercising them.
No, because then the muscles atrophy even faster. You have to adapt. Shorter, far more gentle walks.
Or swimming. The source mentions swimming.
Swimming is a fantastic option because the buoyancy of the water provides resistance to maintain muscle mass without any gravitational impact on the joints.
That's brilliant. You preserve the mechanics without punishing the body.
Exactly.
Speaking of the body, there is a biological connection in this material regarding dental health that completely reframed how I view pet care. It's not just about bad breath or losing a tooth. Untreated dental disease actively damages the heart, the kidneys, and the liver.
It's systemic.
I was trying to visualize this, and it feels exactly like having a slow-leaking pipe inside the walls of your house. You see a little water spot in the bathroom and think it's just a localized cosmetic issue.
Just a tiny stain.
Right. But behind the drywall, that water is dripping day after day, year after year, slowly rotting out the foundational floorboards of the entire house. A dog's bad teeth look like a localized mouth problem, but the bacteria is slowly rotting their foundational organs.
That leaky pipe analogy captures the mechanism perfectly. The gums are highly vascular tissues. I mean, they're packed with blood vessels.
Right.
When periodontal disease takes hold, the bacteria from the infected gums doesn't stay confined to the mouth. Every single time the dog chews their kibble or gnaws on a toy, they are pushing a shower of bacteria directly into their bloodstream.
And where does that blood go?
It circulates everywhere. It goes straight to the heart valves, where bacteria can latch on and cause endocarditis. It filters through the liver, and crucially through the kidneys.
The kidneys take a massive hit.
They do. The kidneys are essentially a dense network of microscopic cysts. When they're constantly bombarded by oral bacteria, those microscopic cysts become inflamed. Chronic inflammation leads to microscarring.
And scarring ruins the filter.
Over years, that scarring destroys the kidney's ability to filter toxins. That is why the checklist emphasizes regular dental checkups and brushing. You aren't just saving their molars, you are actively defending their major organs from a systemic bacterial invasion.
Okay, so we have the physical body mapped out. The joints, the muscle preservation, the teeth. But the physical body is really only half the equation here. As their joints age, the way their brain processes the external world is dramatically shifting.
The sensory changes.
It's like their physical hardware is wearing down, but their software is also glitching. Let's look at their sensory input, starting with vision.
Vision and hearing are where we see the most frequent misinterpretations from owners.
The eye changes are fascinating because they can be incredibly deceptive. Like you might look at your senior dog and see that their eyes are getting a hazy, bluish-gray cloudiness.
A very common sight.
And from the couch, it looks identical, whether it's harmless or severe. It could be something called nuclear sclerosis, which is basically a normal age-related change where the lens fibers just compress and get denser. Light still gets through, and the dog can still see fine.
Right, it's just a structural aging thing.
Or that exact same cloudiness could be cataracts, which is an actual structural change to the proteins in the eye that blocks light and leads to total blindness. You cannot diagnose which one it is just by looking at them.
Which reinforces the core theme, right? Do not assume.
Yeah.
You need a vet to shine a light through that lens to see if the retina is visible.
Exactly.
And the exact same caution applies to hearing. The signs of canine hearing loss aren't always just a dog stubbornly ignoring your commands. The presentation can be a dog who startles much more easily when you walk up behind them.
Oh, because they didn't hear you coming.
Right. Or a dog who suddenly sleeps right through familiar, loud sounds, like the mail carrier dropping a package or the doorbell ringing.
And if they are losing that sensory input, the burden falls entirely on us to adapt our communication. We have to start using exaggerated hand signals, strong visual cues, or, communicating through gentle touch and floor vibrations so we don't startle them.
It's all about adapting our approach.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The material moves past just the sensory input and tackles the actual processor, the brain. They detail canine cognitive dysfunction, or CCD, which mirrors human Alzheimer's disease in some incredibly profound ways.
The physical mechanisms are remarkably similar. In both aging humans and dogs with CCD, we see an accumulation of beta-amyloid plaques in the brain, alongside a physical shrinking of the brain tissue itself, cortical atrophy.
Cortical atrophy.
Yeah, these physical changes disrupt the neural pathways.
And the behavioral results are deeply unsettling to witness. We are talking about a dog wandering the house aimlessly in the middle of the night, completely inverted sleep-wake cycles.
Up all night, sleeping all day.
Right. A dog getting physically stuck behind a sofa or in a tight corner and not knowing how to back out, or just standing in the center of the living room they've inhabited for a decade, looking completely lost.
Getting stuck in corners is a classic presentation. Because of that neural disruption, the brain's signal to shift into reverse literally cannot bridge the synaptic gap.
It's not stubbornness at all.
They aren't being stubborn. Their brain simply cannot execute the command to walk backwards.
The material suggests managing this cognitive decline through active mental stimulation, like puzzle feeders, gentle training exercises, and introducing new smells on walks. But I have to admit, if I'm picturing a senior dog who is already getting disoriented in their own home or losing their hearing, aren't things like puzzle toys and new training regimes just going to frustrate an easily confused animal?
That seems like it would, right?
It feels a bit like forcing someone who just wants to rest to do a complicated crossword puzzle.
What's fascinating here is that the canine brain functions very much like a muscle. When we reduce stimulation to avoid frustrating them, we actually accelerate the atrophy.
Oh, wow. Use it or lose it.
Exactly. Providing a puzzle feeder or allowing them to spend 10 uninterrupted minutes just decoding the scent of a new bush on a walk, it forces the brain to build and maintain new neural pathways. It's actively flexing that cognitive muscle.
So you just have to make sure it's not too hard.
You absolutely have to scale the puzzles so they are achievable. You want to build confidence, not frustration. But that engagement is a vital biological defense against cognitive dysfunction. Adapting to their sensory loss and finding new ways to challenge their minds doesn't just keep them sharp, it builds an entirely new, incredibly deep layer of trust and bonding.
Okay, so we are flexing the brain muscle, we're preserving the joint mechanics, we're protecting the kidneys by brushing the teeth. But because every single one of these physical and cognitive changes happens at a glacial pace day to day, our human observation is deeply flawed.
We miss the micro changes.
We are not reliable narrators of our dog's health. We need concrete data.
We have to stop relying just on our eyes and start acting a bit like medical detectives. And the foundation of that data collection requires a shift in how we utilize our veterinarians.
Because when your dog is an adult, the standard rhythm is going to the vet once a year. But the moment they hit that senior classification, the recommendation aggressively shifts to twice-yearly visits.
That frequency is critical because of canine metabolic rates. If a dog lives roughly 12 to 14 years, 6 months of their life is roughly equivalent to 3 or 4 human years.
That's a huge gap.
A massive amount of biological change can happen in your body over 4 years. A disease that can be easily managed with a cheap daily pill in month 12, one can snowball into a critical, untreatable emergency by month 10.
And what they're really hunting for at these 6-month checkups is the internal data, the blood work. They're checking liver values, thyroid levels, white blood cell counts, and kidney function. There is a massive emphasis on establishing baselines.
Baselines are the holy grail of senior pet care. The liver and the kidneys have a massive amount of reserve capacity. A dog will not show clinical outward signs of kidney failure, like drinking excessive bowls of water or urinating constantly, until roughly 70% of the organ is functionally destroyed.
Wait, 70%. So by the time you actually see the symptom, the organ is already critically failing.
Exactly. But a blood test can detect the fractional loss of function way before it hits that 70% threshold. If you know that your dog's kidney values have been hovering at a specific, consistent number for 5 years, and suddenly at the 6-month checkup there's a 10% shift, that is highly actionable data.
You can actually intervene.
Yes. If you only pull blood when the dog is visibly sick, you have zero context for what their healthy normal actually looks like.
But the detective work doesn't stop at the clinic. It continues at home, tracking their appetite, their hydration, their weight. Unexplained extreme thirst points to those kidney or blood sugar issues. Sudden lack of interest in food is a major red flag.
Right, you have to track it all.
And there are tracking tools and apps, like VitalPet, designed specifically for this. You log their medications, their dietary supplements, and their daily symptoms. You can even use the data to spot seasonal patterns.
Like stiffness in winter.
Exactly, like realizing your dog is always significantly stiffer when the temperature drops in January, or their appetite always vanishes during the July heat. But let me ask you this. Is logging every time your dog drinks water in an app and going to the vet every 6 months really necessary if the dog is acting totally fine? Or is that crossing the line into overly anxious helicopter parenting?
It sounds excessive until you look at the evolutionary biology of the canine. Dogs are descended from pack animals, and in the wild, displaying pain or physical weakness makes you a target.
Survival of the fittest.
Right. It is a survival mechanism hardwired deep into their DNA to hide discomfort at all costs. By the time a dog acts sick to human eyes, the underlying disease is often quite advanced.
So they're masking it.
Exactly. Building a complete written medical history isn't driven by anxiety. It's about giving your veterinarian the precise diagnostic context they need. When you can walk into a clinic and say, his water intake has increased by 20% over the last 4 weeks, and he hesitated on the stairs 3 times this month, you are empowering the vet to catch a disease when the treatment is still highly manageable.
So essentially, we are forced to become data gatherers because their evolutionary biology actively prevents them from telling us when it hurts. That makes total sense. But all this rigorous tracking, the blood panels, the joint supplements, the VitalPet app, it all ultimately serves one profound purpose.
This brings us to the final section of our checklist, evaluating their quality of life.
Because the goal of veterinary medicine is never just to blindly extend biological life for the sake of it. The ultimate goal is to maximize the dog's daily emotional and physical experience. Vets actually utilize objective quality of life scales. These are clinical parameters used to measure specific categories: pain levels, appetite, mobility, hygiene, like whether they can still groom themselves or stand up to go to the bathroom, and overall happiness.
Very concrete metrics.
The core metric is heavy but simple. Is the dog having more good days than difficult ones? But part of this process involves us, the owners, redefining what a full life actually means. A dog who can't run 3 miles anymore, but still finds immense joy in meticulously sniffing every square inch of the backyard and cuddling on the sofa with you, that dog is still living a fully engaged, beautiful life.
Yes, exactly.
It comes about presence and comfort, not physical perfection.
It requires a profound, often painful shift in our expectations. We have to allow ourselves to mourn the loss of the wildly energetic dog they used to be, while actively celebrating and loving the slower dog they are right now.
So, what does this all mean? How do we, as owners who love these animals fiercely, separate our own intense emotional attachment from objectively scoring our dog on a clinical scale? It feels entirely too easy to lie to yourself and say, well, he wagged his tail when I walked in, so he must be fine, even if he's struggling the other 23 hours of the day.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, The most comforting realization here is that you are not expected to carry the burden of that objective judgment alone. It is an incredibly emotionally charged journey, but your veterinarian is designed to be your objective partner.
They anchor you.
They do. They use those concrete scales to ground the conversation. They help you navigate the stark medical realities alongside the heavy emotional realities. You don't have to make these assessments in an emotional vacuum.
That takes so much of the weight off the owner's shoulders.
Right.
So, to recap the mission of our deep dive for everyone listening, the ultimate takeaway is vigilant, informed observation.
Vigilance is key.
Keep an incredibly close eye on the subtle shifts, hesitation on the stairs, sleeping through the doorbell, drinking more water. Become a detective and track the data. Adapt your exercise routines to preserve their joints, and adapt your home environment to support their fading senses. And the absolute golden rule, never, ever write off a symptom or a behavior change as just old age.
Never.
It is very likely pain, and it is very likely something you can help fix.
And remember, caring for a senior dog is a profound privilege. They have spent their entire lives adapting to our rigid human schedules, our rules, and our noisy environments. Now it is our turn to adapt to theirs.
If you have a senior dog at home, when this deep dive ends, please go give them a slow, wandering walk where they get to sniff every single blade of grass they want to, or just sit on the floor and give them a good snuggle. Honor that lifetime of loyalty they've given you.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We talked about how dogs rely on new smells to flex their brain muscle when their vision or hearing begins to fade. Consider the incredible untapped power of a dog's olfactory map. If a senior dog begins to go entirely blind and deaf, what if we intentionally redesigned our homes using specific, distinct essential oils or scent markers at key locations?
Oh, wow.
Like a drop of lavender on the edge of the bottom stair, a hint of cedar near their water bowl, a touch of vanilla by their bed? Could we create an invisible, purely aromatic architecture to keep them perfectly oriented, confident, and safe in their space, navigating their world entirely by scent?
An aromatic architecture. That is an incredible concept, and it completely changes how I view the layout of my living room right now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of discovery today. Remember that endless puppy energy we talked about at the very beginning? It doesn't actually disappear. It just transforms into a much deeper, quieter kind of bond. You just have to know how to see it. Take care, everyone.